Welcome!
Welcome to the Omniverse of Nick and Part 3 to What If Bucky Became Captain America. Before we begin, be sure to check out the Omniverse's homepage, where our channel mascot Omni will direct you to the Discord, both Google Docs, and everything else the Omniverse has to offer, along with smashing the like button, subscribing to the Omniverse of Nick, sharing the Omniverse around and turning on all Omniversal notifications, and commenting future requests and expectations in the comments section. With all that said, let's begin. We open up where we ended off last time, with Bucky awakening after 70 years and meeting Nick Fury. And we're not getting a whole, Bucky and Peggy storyline. And even if that were to happen, it really just wouldn't work. Steve and Peggy are the only relationship between, for really Peggy's character in general that I see happening. Of course, Bucky and Peggy know more and have interacted more in this timeline, but it is not a relationship or anything close to that kind of deal, so that's not happening. But he is wondering what happened to her after he wakes up. But what he's mainly focused on is whether Steve is still alive, and he doesn't think he'll ever know. And even if he is, he just wonders if Captain Hydra is still going to be the person that he faces if he ever faces Steve again. So, he does join Nick Fury for the whole Avengers prospect, but it does take time. Loki then arrives on Earth, and Loki and Bucky have a fight, and Bucky does pull off a few more blows than Steve, but Loki is obviously a freaking god, so yeah, he ain't losing to Bucky. Iron Man then comes in for the save, and we get the first interaction of Iron Man and Bucky, and a much more safe and secured one, seeing these two actually react to each other in this different timeline, considering Bucky is Captain America. Then we get Iron Man and Thor fighting, and Bucky halts it, and the three decide to figure out what to do with Loki and where to go from there. Then we get the whole discussion on top the aircraft carrier, and Bucky arguing with Tony Stark, and the whole deal about them squaring up. And I do not think that Bucky would be immediate as to telling Tony to put on the suit and everything like that, like Steve would, because it's just because of Bucky. I just don't think that it would be a need for these two to just instigate each other, but they were all in the middle of an argument, so it really wouldn't matter either way. So overall, the discussion goes the same, except Bucky is, Captain America instead of Steve. So minor differences. Then we get the whole Black Widow tricking Loki into seeing that he plans to release the Hulk. But it ends up happening anyway because of Hawkeye and all the other men controlled by Loki. And Hulk gets onto the aircraft carrier, and Black Widow is attacked. Thor comes in for the save, and meanwhile, Bucky and Iron Man are trying to fix the ship. Then we get all the Avengers ready to fight the Chitauri and going through it, with Bucky replacing Steve. And with this, there really isn't much to say about this. Maybe besides the fact that with Bucky as Captain America instead, they would take out 5, 10, maybe more extra Chitauri. But really, it wouldn't really change anything. Then Bucky and the rest of the Avengers corner Loki, and they win the battle. So yeah, pretty much all goes the same. Then we get to Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Bucky and Natasha, or Black Widow, they get to figuring out the whole mission about the Winter Soldier and figuring out all of Hydra and things like that. And Nick Fury still gets attacked and fakes his death. And that whole scene pretty much The great portion of the movie goes the same. Then Bucky finds himself with the biggest challenge he's ever faced. He throws a shield at a guy getting away, but the person catches it with a metal arm, an H over his head, and seemingly a very familiar looking stance. Then the Winter Soldier fights against Black Widow and everybody on the freeway. And Captain America Bucky faces down this Winter Soldier. And when the two start fighting, he sees not only does this Winter Soldier have a metal arm, but they're almost completely evenly matched, with the Winter Soldier actually landing a great many blows. And then Bucky manages to get him on the ground and launch a furtive assault on the Winter Soldier. And he unmasks him, or, undoes his helmet, or whatever the frick you would want to consider for his outfit and headwear. And it's revealed Steve Rogers, Captain Hydra, is alive, but he is no longer Steve Rogers as Captain Hydra for Red Skull and Hydra as a whole. He is Steve Rogers, Captain Hydra, the Winter Soldier. Is there any chance, especially because he's the Winter Soldier, to bring Steve back? Especially since he turned early and Bucky never did whenever Steve became Captain America? Or is Bucky going to have to do what he really does not want to do and what he was fearing of ending up doing, and kill his friend? Especially after this whole journey was to save his friend. And how will his future as Captain America pan out?
Now get out!
What?
Get out! Everybody get out!